Well, the thing I like about this government is that it's consistent. It is consistently focused on being the best government for vested interests that it can be. And what it's done over these last 2 years has been to shovel policy and money to its favoured vested interests, the people that run the organisation of the Labor Party, the union movement, which runs pre-selections and supports the Labor Party on polling places and is the campaign force behind the Labor movement. And so, after having spent 2 years of public office working for these narrow vested interests, it appears that the nation's economic problems will never be solved under this government, which is hugely regrettable for the Australian people who are stuck with this government in the immediate term. What it means is that people have to pay more for things like rents and mortgages. And the questions today that I asked to Senator Farrell about the probity and governance standards that I thought the government would be interested in applying to the Housing Australia Future Fund, which the minister didn't appear to be across the detail on, is just another example of the government being totally relaxed about rent seekers being part of public policy formulation. And what is most surprising is that the government seems entirely relaxed about this shocking conflict which threatens the integrity of this Housing Australia Future Fund, where you have the President of the Labor Party, also the Chairman of the CBUS Fund, which has 3 CFMEU trustees on its board, and the government seems totally disinterested in these issues. Now, I would have thought that if the government wanted to protect the public interest, taxpayer funds and its own reputation, it would be interested in these issues because it would see the obvious conflict. It is a howling conflict of interest for the government to be running a housing slush fund where it wants to co-invest and give taxpayer funds to the CBUS Fund, which has 3 CFMEU trustees on its board and has the President of the Labor Party as the chairman of the fund. I would have thought that it would not be in the interests of the Labor Party, let alone the interests of the public and the taxpayer, for these things to be taken seriously. But what do we hear from the good Minister Farrell today? Crickets, absolute crickets. Very disappointing answers. Frankly, I expected better. And so now the minister says the Prudential Regulation Authority needs to do its job. Now, the Prudential Regulation Authority is not in charge of the Housing Australia Future Fund as probity and its governance, nor is the Prudential Regulation Authority in charge of the superannuation laws and the board composition rules. Those are matters for this government, for this parliament to turn its mind to. So that is hugely regrettable, that the government has just huffed and puffed about how bad the CFMEU is. A couple of years ago, the CFMEU were on the polling places, helping the Labor Party win office, funding its campaigns. And the first thing the government does when it wins office, it abolishes the Building and Construction Commission. But today, apparently, the government says the CFMEU are our mates. Now, that is not the case. So the government talks tough on the CFMEU in relation to its status as a registered organisation, in its status as a union. But what does the government do when it comes to protecting compulsory savings in the superannuation scheme? Nothing. And Minister Farrell's answer today is revealing. The government plans to do nothing to protect taxpayer funds invested in the HAF, which could be threatened by corruption in the CFMEU through the CBUS Fund seeking to invest with the Housing Australia Future Fund. And then more broadly, we hear from Minister Watt today, who commits the government to make no changes on superannuation boards. Minister Watt is committed to the 1970s model of equal representation, where employer groups and unions run the superannuation funds in the interests of the IR Club, not in the interests of workers, certainly not in the interests of employers. So this is a corruption at the heart of this government. It is hugely regrettable that the government has taken no steps to clean the HAF, clean the Housing Australia Future Fund and clear away the CFMEU and all its corrupt constituents.